And I think if we'll all just join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we can get started.
We don't do pledge for
committee meetings?
Well, let's do it anyway, just for fun. We need the practice. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thanks.
Lo, you got it down.
I got it down. See, I don't need the practice.
Speed reader.
I'm sure you guys did.
Enough time for an echo.
So as we know, the new year is starting, and this is our first committee meeting of 2023. And as such, as I understand, we have the opportunity to rotate chairmans of this committee every new year. So with that, I leave it open to Mr. Quillisi and Mr. Stone as to whether either of them wish to volunteer to do that, or if they wish to boot me out. One of the two.
I think rotation's a good thing, and I think Mr. Stone would be a fine chairman.
I was just gonna say, I think Mr. Quillis.
Oh man, you guys have put me in the tiebreaker spot. Why don't you make a political deal so I don't have to do that? Bill, would you be comfortable doing it?
Sure.
Okay. All right, good. All right, well, you're the new chairman of this committee, and Allison will so note. I don't think we need to vote on it, do we?
You do not.
Nope. No.
Okay. All right, good. All right. Well, with that, I will retire into my corner and let you take over, Director Stone.
We'll move on to item 2, public comments. Do we have anybody that wants to make a public comment?
Raised hands in the green room.
Nope.
And we have no email or phone calls or anything.
Good. Things must be running well. To item 3, Oklahoma Sanitary District Classification Compensation Organizational Study.
Well, it's great we're having this meeting because the last meeting was scheduled for the 11th, which was the day after the spill and the disaster. So take a little weather break and back on it. So I put together a timeline of a few things. So we started this process back in September, on September 6th. We outreached to a bunch of firms. And on the 28th of September, we received one proposal. We received a couple of indications that a couple of firms would not be proposing because they were too busy. And based on that 9/28 proposal received from CPS, we scheduled a personnel committee on the 18th of October. At that time, still, CPS was the only respondent. On the 29th, after the personnel committee, so about a week and a half later, we got a revised proposal from CPS with some of the comments from the personnel committee and some input from staff. We scheduled that for the board meeting in November on the 28th, right around Thanksgiving. However, just before the board meeting on the 28th of November, we got the first proposal from RGS. So we didn't get any indication that they were going to propose or what their issues were, but it took them 7 weeks to get us their initial proposal. On the 28th, we went to the board meeting. Board had some questions and suggested we go back to RGS with some questions the next day on the 29th of November. We sent a whole list of questions to RGS about their proposal, how they structured it, why they structured it, how they came up with some of the hours and the allocations, some clarifications, and we gave them 2.5 weeks to respond. That deadline was then the 16th of December. And the reason we chose the 16th of December was we had planned to go back to the board
10 days before the board meeting.
10 days before the board meeting. But in that 2.5 weeks, we got no email from them. We got no phone calls. We got no indication, no questions, no follow-up, except on the middle of the day on the 16th, the actual day, the deadline. we got an email from them and said, hey, we're sorry, we were a little busy. Can we get you a proposal? But no questions, no clarifications, nothing. So here we are today, and we still haven't gotten any proposal from them, any questions, any reach out, any indication that they still would like to propose, and they have in any way answered any of our questions. So one of the things we did was we went back to 2018, the last time we did a class and comp study. And the proposal at the time in 2018 was $42,951. If you just looking at rough inflation between 2018 and 2023, that's at least 15%. We would have expected a proposal, same scope, same work, same hours, same complexity, about $49,000, $50,000. Their proposal that we did receive back in November was for $42,900. It was exactly the same price we paid in 2018 with no inflation. Now, we would have expected a much higher proposal just because in our scoping of the work, we felt it was more complex, more sophisticated rather than just a very traditional class and comp study. And so one of our questions to them when we asked them to clarify, we said, hey, we were thinking it was more involved than what you proposed on and the price you proposed. You know, how did you come up with that, and what's your rationale for something that's 15% under today's dollars, less than we would anticipate for a simple study, much less a more complicated study? Obviously, we haven't gotten any answer from them as to why or how or what they came up with that, or any response to any of those questions. So here we are today. No response and unresponsive from RGS. We have gotten, obviously, received a proposal from CPS where they went through and tightened up some things and clarified some of their assumptions and lowered their price to fit the amended scope of work that we think.
So the price is the same as from November.
Right, but it was higher when we got it back in October.
Yeah, it was about $10,000.
So that's where we are today. I mean, I think RGS is non-responsive. I don't think they responded to our questions in any way, and I'm not sure they'd be a good fit for the actual work we need to do.
Didn't do the first work.
I'm sorry. So to clarify, CPS, we've not talked to them since November then either, right?
I have. I talk to them probably once every 3 weeks just to follow up and let them know where we're at in our approval
Okay.
process.
So they're aware that their bid is being considered today. Yeah, okay. Okay,
And-
but RBGS never, when they replied, did they ever give give us by January 12th or they just never gave a date or
No.
anything? They just said we won't be ready by that 16th.
Right, and they never reached out and said, okay, we got your questions. Can we have a conference call to understand your questions?
Right.
And
Okay,
and sometimes we run into this with
Yeah.
consultants. Consultants under state law are intended and specified that we hire them based on qualifications, not bid the work. Under public contract code for contracting, we're required by law to accept the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. And so,
Federal law.
right. So if we put something out to bid and Skip's Backhoe Service is the low bidder and he has the license and meets all the minimum requirements, we have to give the job to Skip's Backhoe Service. On the professional services side, it is intended to be select the qualifications of the person you want. The way I've described it to some of the people in the public who ask the difference between contracting and consultants is, when you need a heart doctor, you don't hire a budget heart doctor, and you don't hire a foot doctor to do heart doctor work. you accurately define what you need and then go find, a consulting firm, a professional service that can really meet those professional needs. And, RGS has not been at the top of the list in terms of responsive or thorough.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of where we are today. The industry is still tight. It is difficult to get firms to respond on lots of things, from locksmiths to electricians to almost anything. We were looking for pipe for our Creek Road sewer line repair, and we considered 4 different kinds of pipe that would have all met the same diameter requirements, and we could only find one of the types of pipe available in the Western United States. So this is a tough market, both on the contracting and supply side and the consulting side.
Where's market?
So
So we would recommend going to the board with CPS. We've given RGS a couple of shots at trying to be considered reasonably, and we go to the board with CPS and move on the process.
I don't have a big objection to that, but I do have a couple questions. One is, in the contract proposal, they state that the district is going to give them eight people to evaluate relative to our
Right.
district. I think I asked for that list before, but is that something secret, or can we, the board, get a copy of who you're thinking about using?
When we get down the
Yes.
road, we're going to get down the road a little bit and maybe make some changes to that. One of the first things to do with them is really sit down and talk about organizational structure and plan for, the future. I don't want to sort of spread, news that isn't really news, but, this might be my last 5-year salary and compensation study.
You're going to take a job in Turkey?
Yeah, right. I need seismic inspectors. And so, as I've talked over the years, I really want to make sure that I have some time to put in place an organizational structure that really matches us going forward. And so one of the big efforts with CPS and why we structured it the way we structured was have some conversations with them about organizational structure and how to make sure we're right structured for the future. I see it every day. Our younger people think and talk differently than I do. And that's a wonderful thing. But, we need to have an organization that fits those people and the labor force and the tasks. When I came here, we had job descriptions that were written to describe the people that were here. And so we didn't really have a job description for an operations manager. We had a job description for Ron. And we had a job description for Brenda and a job description for, people. And I think that we've moved that quite a ways from where it was. This is an effort to sort of put a different generation on that. So before we decide which jobs we're going to benchmark to the compensation world, we're going to sit down and talk about organizational structure and the right way to sort of plan things out. All of these steps, we're going to have a bunch of personnel committee meetings this year. I mean, that's going to be an effort.
Okay. All right. Well, I just, in my mind, I separate the two, the comp study versus the organization. And so what I'm concerned about is I still would like us very much to include, on the compensation side, some comparison to the private sector. And I think at the last board meeting, we had some discussion about that. And I think you stated, Jeff, at the time that the reason we don't do that is because our operators have to have, you know, the special treatment plant certifications. And I've since done some reading on those certifications, and it's pretty clear that, you know, somebody that works at the oil field would not have that type of certification or educational background for a level 2 or 3 operator. But as a level 1, when they're first hired, they don't have to have that certification. At least that's what we published in our job posting. They just have to be able to get it within a year. And so that, anyway, the point I'm ultimately getting to, it seems to me of the 21 staff we have at the district, at least 7 or 8 are directly comparable to the private sector. And I was just wondering if we could make some effort to split, you know, our IT people, our you know, our office staff, all that, and get at least some indication of how we are relative to private versus just all addition, you know, other special districts.
Well, we can have that. I mean, I'm open to that conversation with the full board. That's a board decision. I wouldn't recommend it. I think that you know, the obligations of let's just take an accountant here. This is not just accounts receivable, accounts payable kind of work. It's knowing and understanding the PERS obligations that are required from an auditing and an accounting perspective. In fact, Lynn, our accountant, goes to a special PERS seminar, only PERS, for PERS accounting every year. And it's a 3 or 4 day conference that she has to go to make sure she's up to speed, retains the knowledge. So, you know, the bookkeeper in a 21 person contracting company or small business or, you know, may do some of the same general things, but there are many things that are entirely different. I'll give you another example. So we have standby pay. Well, standby pay in the government is entirely different than standby pay in the private side. In fact, there's a legal case, Glendale PD, that went all the way to an appellate court in the state of California that turns standby pay dollars and hours into value that the district achieves. So we as a district, we as a functioning organization get the benefit from that person being on standby time. And so that standby time dollars has to be converted into an hourly rate, even though it's a different hourly rate than their normal working hourly rate. And that all has to get rolled into overtime calculations. And so every payroll period, every pay period, you know, we're going through this detailed discussion about PERS compensating time, standby time, how that standby time turns into value that we have to report because of prevailing wage laws and standards that apply to governmental agencies. And so I would say that maybe our frontline counterperson, Taylor, is you know, a answering the phones kind of person, can be compared to, you know, someone answering the phone somewhere else, but the comparisons really end there. And
Yeah, you do IT that's particularly different from private sector? I mean, I've worked in a number of defense contracting companies. They certainly handle a lot of different fenced accounts. Aren't necessarily there in the private sector.
I think it's
Large, they're, you know, network managers, system administrators, or that kind of thing. And so it may be the same, that the basic functions verbal, but there are more specialized functions here.
yeah, and there's so much more about our business that's very proprietary. You know, most people would say in order for a job to be comparable to another job, you have to have 80 or 90% of the job has to be similar, so you can say it really truly is a similar comparison. And, and to, to, to make the distinction between public and private, I just don't think that you can make the correlation straight across. And, and the benefits are different, the working hours are different, the ability to hire and fire and hold, performance standards are different. I mean, we really don't see people coming into our business and meeting the standards for interviewing and being hired here unless they have spent significant time in the same business. We just don't see.
Even the level one operators come from a previous level one job.
Well-
Our top three candidates for the person we just hired, we had two that were in the industry and one that wasn't. And the distinction between the two that were in the industry and the one that wasn't in a sanitary district were night and day. The guy coming from the outside was a wonderful young man. But when you sit down and say, can you come in as a 1, a 2, a 3, whichever level is appropriate, and hit the ground running, it wasn't even close. Wonderful young man. In a different organization where maybe they have 20 operators and they have the opportunity to bring someone in and really grow them and benefit from a large organization, great. He would have been a fantastic employee. But it's not even close to and one of the guys was a 1. So he had very little industry experience, but he's so far up the power curve of hitting the ground running. With a clear distinction. We had a very easy to pick the number 1 candidate, and the difference between the number 2 and the number 3 candidate wasn't even close.
Well, one of the factors in doing a total compensation and salary comparison is that the 80% or greater match is a direct lateral movability potential in a competitive employment market. So that's why the match has to be so high. So they generally have to be like for like to be comparable on enough of a standard where somebody wouldn't be laterally transferring into something they'd be under or overqualified for. So picking direct matches are generally done very specifically in an industry that is identically like for like. And that's where Jeff got into organizational structure becomes a factor also, because obviously that affects how many positions you have. They kind of look at similar geographic areas because that affects competition and retention. So you can definitely cast the net wide, but your differences are going to start becoming very great and noticeable, and they just simply become not comparable on several different levels. I mean, private sector offers some things that were prohibited from as a public agency. It's very, very difficult to compare a PERS retirement to an incentivized, say, Fidelity retirement that has stock options, et cetera. You start to get into those nuances for total compensation, they become completely not comparable.
It's a board
completely
decision.
unfazed by any of this, just so you know. Thank you.
And we'll be happy to put some the discussion together, with this.
If
Yeah, no, he's not muted. We was losing him. I think he's got a weak connection.
Losing you.
Hello, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, but what I'm saying is, I think other than our operators, I think all of our positions are directly comparable to the private sector. In the accounting, if we're operating under this set of rules and a private business is operating under that set of rules, it's just a question of which set of rules you're operating. It's still fundamentally accounting. And, like IT, I know Jan does a fine job. I know the IT people I've worked with in the past do a fine job. I think they're probably directly comparable in terms of their experience, whether they're working with this particular system or that particular system, those things, level of experience, of course, matters, as you've just said, around the operators. You've got an engineering, you've got a lab tech there, which I'm certain is, there's any number of companies that use lab techs to do analysis, I think. Anyway, and I don't know why you said earlier that, if we want to use a private sector comparison for some of our employees, why that is a full board discussion, but I'm happy to have that discussion with the full board. The other thing around the operators, it's really interesting. In our hiring document we said an operator one does not have to have that certificate. They just have to be able to get it within a year. That was what it was in our hiring document. And yet, when you talk to us and the full board, you say, we'd never hire anybody that doesn't have that certificate. So, we're saying one thing in our hiring, proposal or document, whatever it was, and we're saying another thing in our board meetings. So what I have learned about that is that the way the state does it, they've got what they call an operator in training position, which is really somebody that needs to come in and gain experience. And I think they require something like 1,800 hours. So it's basically somewhere around 47, 40-hour weeks. And at the end of that time, they have to be able to pass that certification test. So, but what we said in ours, we wanted an operator one level. So presumably, that's somebody that's already gone through the OIT process and actually has their certificate, but that's not what we said in our document. It said they didn't have to have that certificate. They just had to be able to pass it within a year. So it was kind of confusing to me. What I know what you wanted to do is get somebody with experience, and I wholeheartedly support that. But anyway, I just think we're sticking our head in the sand when it comes to, comparing ourselves to private industry. And I have to say, I have a built-in bias because I think we're way overpaid relative to private industry based on the position openings that I've seen at various websites for positions that are similar to ours. I am certain when we go through and compare ourselves to all the other special districts, our numbers are going to look very, very similar because everybody's copying each other. So I just think, I understand what you're saying. It doesn't sway me in the least when it comes to positions other than the operators and, plant managers, supervisors, because they have to have the highest level of certification to be able to operate the plant. But anyway, if you think, just to add, some of those positions as part of the comparison needs to be a full board discussion, then I don't understand why that is. But if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. Personally, I would rather let CPS make that decision and just ask them, are there some positions in our organization that could be compared to private industry versus another special district, and let them tell us yes or no. That I would be more interested in hearing. One thing I've been very pleased with in listening to the discussions from both Jeff and Allison is how very supportive you are of your staff. I've worked for a lot of people that, it was all me and they didn't have any interest in the staff other than as a tool to get themselves ahead. So I have to say, I really do appreciate the defense of the castle, if you will, around the sanitary district staff. So anyway, with that, I'll shut up.
So those were good points. Phyllis, do you have?
I think it's fine if we want to discuss private sector comparability when we get to the board meeting. I do think it's an appropriate thing to ask of our consultant, whoever it is. Sure. But beyond that, I think it's at the point now where we need to move on and get this comp study underway.
Can I ask one question about the in-house? I forget what we call the first part of this study. It's not compensation. Is it structural, organizational?
Classification, organizational, yeah.
Okay. So in that organizational study, will they be looking at the possibility of streamlining certain parts of that, or potentially opposite a, a need to expand. For instance, when I look at our organizational chart on the operations side, we've got 2 managers over 2 supervisors for over 11 people. In the oil companies, a typical span of control is about 18 to 22. In this case, we've got span of controls of, less than 4 or 5. So to me, that looks top heavy. I think that's about $200,000 to $300,000 that we're taking out of the ratepayers' pockets that we don't need to be spending. So I'm very curious if in this organizational study, we're going to be looking at those kind of things also.
Well, I don't look at it in terms of dollars we're taking out of ratepayers' pockets directly. What I look at is sort of task-based structure. And I look at the tasks we're required to do from a regulatory perspective, and and how we achieve those completion of those tasks, and how we apply full-time equivalents to the sections of our organization to do those sorts of tasks. And so my discussion with CPS is going to be, here's a breakdown of all the tasks we are required to do, and here's the staffing we have, and how are other organizations accomplishing all those tasks? Are there innovative and technologically advanced ways to accomplish some of those things? And can we achieve any efficiencies in our assignment of our staff to complete those tasks? And looking forward, what do we see in the industry in terms of new tasks upcoming, and how are regulatory burdens changing, and where do we need to assign tasks or gain expertise to both meet the needs of what we have today, plus meet the challenges of new regulatory efforts and pursuits in the future. One of the examples I've talked about previously is, years ago, we didn't have to worry about what was getting into our system. And today we have to go visit dentists and make sure that their mercury compliance rules are sufficient to make sure that mercury isn't getting into our system. And so not just 5 years ago, we weren't having to go visit dentists, but now we are. And so we have to assign staff to be able to do that. And we have to make sure we have the staff and the electronic methods to do those inspections and do those certifications and provide that information to the state. And so the regulatory world is changing, rapidly. And how do we assign people to do those? So I don't look at straight, are we top heavy or bottom heavy? I look at what we're required to do and what expertise it takes to do those tasks.
Well, I guess I would agree with that philosophy, except for the idea that since you are assigning tasks to people, does it take 4 managers, supervisors to assign somebody to do that? In other words, would we be better off having another, supervised person as opposed to having 2 supervisors? So
Well,
that's the kind of thing that, it looks to me like we've organized it. As my boss used to tell me, you're a little company thinking you're big, because we had problems with this kind of stuff too. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. I think we're top heavy on the supervisory side, on the operations side, and someone's paying their salary, and who that is the ratepayers. So it comes right out of my pocket, actually. So anyway, to me, go ahead.
Well, that's why we haven't filled Mark Chevelle's supervisor position in the collection system.
Well, that would make sense to me. I would consider the same thing when the next guy retires.
Well, that's what we do. And we may find that in this task assessment and this regulatory environment assessment, that Mark's position, rather than being a supervisor in collections, more appropriately should be assigned to some sort of other regulatory compliance function that is more relevant today than having an extra supervisor in a collection system. So of course, that's how we look at some of this task assignment and regulatory burden.
Okay. Well, again, I applaud that. I just hope we can figure out how to do it more efficiently from a managerial supervisory perspective. Anyway, it sounds like I've made my points. You guys can go on from where you are.
Anything more, Mr. Quillisi?
No, not at this point. I've been through this and I'm sure like Lowell, I've been a entry-level engineer and I've been a vice president and while a span of control of 5 would be small in the aerospace business, I have not worked in a company that had less than 25 people in staff. So from that point of view, it all depends on what the tasks are that have to be done to determine what sort of supervision you need. I still never saw a span of control over about 12 or 15
Yeah, we were kind of,
engineers or manufacturing people, maybe a little bit more than that in manufacturing.
yeah. Well, I was just talking to one of our senior vice presidents where I used to work. He's retired, but they felt 22 was too many, but 15, 18 was probably a more workable number. But
Right. 15 or 18 here would be a very flat organization.
well, Jeff could do it by himself. So it kind of gets down to, the quality of the person you have. One manager supervisor, in my view, should be able to handle all 11 of those people, regardless of what the environmental tasks are. And if the problem isn't the manager, it's the number of people we have actually doing the work. And I'm far more receptive to arguments, discussions, proposals, support for adding working staff as opposed to maintaining, a 4 to 11 ratio on our managerial side, supervisory side. But anyway, Jeff's got all that in mind and I appreciate that. So we'll see where it all ends up.
Yeah, maybe a part of this is, does a supervisor sit at a desk all day?
Well, I think, we've had some thoughts about that. I think, and one of the specific reasons we haven't filled Mark Chevelle's position is because I think there's sort of a working manager level sort of thought process we need to go in each one of our departments. We kind of have 5 functioning areas within the organization, and each of those takes an expertise to be able to sort of to do, and each of those take different expertise in terms of the outreach. Somebody who's mucking out drying beds at the treatment plant is an entirely different person than going into a business and doing a fixture unit count. And so we have to have our regulatory burdens clearly known, and we have to have our technical abilities known, and then we need working managers. Other than a couple of positions, I don't think we have hardly anybody that's a sit at the desk and just be a paper pusher all day.
In a staff of the 20s, you don't have enough time to have pure middle managers
We don't.
that pass communications.
I mean, I spend, I'm in the field every day. I know that,
We were yesterday.
and you saw Liz out in her hard hat out there on the sites, so we don't have just engineers that sit behind their desks, and we don't have, a lot of that. I still think though there's a working manager sort of opportunity, but you can't be so much of a working manager that you miss being able to manage hazardous material certifications for Coupa and air permits for certifying on all our generators, and CARB certifications for all our heavy vehicles and diesel emissions. And so there's a lot of regulatory things that we have to do just to certify that we're doing them the way the government says we have to do them. And it's a balance. You want to hire somebody to just be doing certifications all the time, but you need to do the minimum that's required by the state.
I would expect if if we get to the end of the classification organizational study, that there's going to be a reasonably large organizational tree, only part of which we fill because we only have 20 odd people.
Well, we have 21 people, 20 people right now, and we have 50 jobs. And you got to wear lots of hats. And I think that, everybody understands and lives that on a day-to-day basis today. But the regulations continue to get more stringent and more reporting about more things just to certify to the state that it's actually getting done.
Yeah, not that it was being done efficiently in the aerospace companies that I worked in, because we did have people that just sat at a desk and pushed paper to get all the certifications.
We do a construction job, we have to review payrolls, we have to do certified payroll response, we have to do bonds, license, and insurance calculations and certifications. We have to coordinate with the Department of Industrial Relations, DIR, for contracting and contractor certifications. And so, there's a mountain of paperwork that it takes to buy a pump, fix a pump, do all the things that's necessary to do. And then you throw on a FEMA project in the middle of it, and paperwork goes through the roof. But that's the nature of some of the transparency that want in our system, is that rules that are supposed to be followed, and there's paperwork that's supposed to be put out there to say this is how we're doing it, and we're doing it the right way, and anybody can come check on us. And it's a good sort of back check on good government. But we can put this together, add a couple of notes, start the process, and then give some opportunity to do some additional analysis along the way.
Yeah. On the organizational structure thing, I started out with this whole proposal of going into shock over the cost. I'm still not comfortable with the cost based on what I've seen on the other bid and some other things that I've looked at. But in any event, is there any room in this organizational study? I mean, if let's just say for some reason you were limited to a certain set of people, is there any way we could do that? The most important ones, it seems to me, are on the operational side. Is there any real need to do this study on, the Jan and Allison and, that side of the organization? Because I think we've got 15 on the op side and 6 on the other. And I don't know if we did limit it like that, if it would really significantly lower the cost or not. But it seems like we're getting charged about $22,000 per person to do this. And I'm still choking on that, but, and so naturally I'm looking for a place where could I cut? And that would be where we really need to have this organizational studies on the operational side. But is there any room to have a discussion with CPS about, focusing on that side of things?
Is this a firm fixed price bid? Or is this
This is not a
labor-based bid?
this is a
Well, it is a per base because I assume 20 people are going to be evaluated. And
right.
that leads to a certain number of hours, which
They
leads
don't-
to a certain
But
cost.
they don't, if we did one less, they don't take $2,200 off the price. This is a professional services contract. We are hiring someone whose expertise is coming in and looking at an organization, and this is not a bid. We didn't buy widgets. This isn't, if you do 20, you get this price. If you do 19, you do this price. Because part of the expertise, they're gonna put in effort, whether we do 5 or 10 or 15, because they've got to do the analysis of who we are and the other organizations and the outreach. The widget, the how many are we comparing to, is not $2,200 a person. If we cut one person, we might only cut $500 off the price, because the knowledge is necessary, whether you do 10 or 15 or 20. This is,
Well, I agree with, you got to have some fundamentals established, and that would apply, you know, it would not be independent of the size, but if you're talking 15 versus 20, I think that base, would be probably independent of those numbers. But when it comes to the rest of it, it is dependent on those numbers. You cannot tell me that if they did 5, it would be the same cost as 20. It just wouldn't be.
but if we did not, if we
And I
did,
do know that in our case, they're giving us a price that's equivalent to doing the entire state. I forget what department it is of New Jersey, and it's, which is several hundred employees. So I just, I don't get why their price is so high. And I've been stuck on that from the beginning. So again, all I was looking for is there any possibility that we could trim the price, even if it's $5,000 or $10,000? We've already shown that if we just go back and say, can you relook at it? We got a $10,000 price drop. So, to me, all these discussions we've had has been worth 10,000 to the district. So anyway, if you don't feel there's anything there, then that's fine. I would be surprised, but the other problem we have is these guys aren't going to be available forever. They may not even be available now, although it sounds like they still are with Allison's discussions with them. So, I can drag this out for 7 years, and that's not my intent. But my intent is to figure out how we can do these kind of things cheaper. Because right now, when I look at this, we've got four possibilities. One is just don't do it. Second is ask the staff to do it. 3 is accept the low bid, or 4 is accept the high bid. And I'm almost willing to bet if I go out and, put that options out to my constituents, they'll say either do it yourself or accept the low bid. So I don't think anybody's going to say don't do it. And I don't think anybody's going to say take the high bid. And I realize we're not really talking the true bid structure like it is a construction project. But anyway, so that's kind of how I'm looking at this, is how can I do this, still have value, but do it at a cost that's less than, $6 per constituent that we have. So if you don't think that's a possibility, then, that's your answer. I'm good. Yeah.
no, I would say, well, I've been doing this 35 years, and I would say, this is a good quality firm. This is a scope of work that I think we need to do to right size and structure and prepare our organization to look forward, given the labor market. This is the kind of work that helps us find good people, keep good people, and do good work. And I think it's an appropriate and professional way to go forward. I would not hire professional services based on low bid. These guys took 7 weeks to respond the first time. When we had a flood, you're back on January 9th. At 8 o'clock at night, after our 6 o'clock first break, I started calling consultants and I said, can you meet me at 7 in the morning to come in and help us solve this problem? And they were there. So there's a wide range of consultants that have a wide range of expertise, a wide range of responsiveness, and a wide range of ability to help us achieve our goals. I think what we've put forward here is a professional, reasonable, appropriate set of tasks that help us achieve that. And if we want to do it just cheaper, you can do it cheaper, but I'm not sure you'll get a better product, and I'm not sure you'll get the information we need to help us achieve us going forward.
Well, and I don't disagree that, but I'm also not certain you'd get a lesser product either. So particularly from a company that's done it for many, many years. So anyway, I will
I'm
be quiet now.
disappointed that we have only one responsive bidder. Didn't run into that very often in 35 years in aerospace.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 in November, but one of them has dropped out.
One of them has dropped out.
That's what's happened. So
And so I would make a motion to recommend to the board that we go ahead with CPS as it's been presented, because we don't really have a good alternative at this point.
other than doing it internally or not doing it at all, which I would not be in favor
Yeah,
of.
I would not be in favor of either of those.
Either one of those is an option at this point.
Yeah, we
Right.
used to do it in-house ourselves, but that's, again, different company, different strokes for different folks, I guess. We had what we called roles and responsibilities studies where everybody would write out what they do and, all that stuff. And then we'd compile it in such a way that we could look at our organization and decide if we needed to change things around. But, that was,
Sounds like that's the way it was done here in the early days or
Yeah.
earlier days.
yeah. So anyway, if that's the sense of the board or this group that, we want to go that way, then I think someone needs to put forward a motion and go that way. Or
That's
go
my
on with the
motion on, that's my motion on the table.
Yeah, I'm for taking this to the board.
Okay.
I just got a few comments I want to make though. I do appreciate you guys being out again and again and again. It makes you feel a bit like you're buying a used car when you go back and say, we need a better deal. Do appreciate you getting them off the top from where it started. My ask of this would be, let's make sure we get a good document. Make sure we get something that we can use going forward, because I know we have done this in the past in my time here, and we've got something that's been kind of tailored to what we had. It really had no value after the point it was written, so.
I'm frankly surprised that when you went back and got something of a necessarily a revised scope, but a clarification of the bid, that the price came down. Personally, I had put together a bid for a software system for the city of Asheville, North Carolina, Pumpkin County. And they came back to me and said, we really like your system, but we like their price. Could you meet their price? I said, no. One, if there's only one item in contention here, then we're saying somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. That's not a good way to deal. Second, I had no idea you might come back to me and ask for something. So I had to give you my best price at the top. Third, if I took money off the table right now, you'd wonder if you asked for enough, and you would never trust another number that I give you. You got the job.
Yeah, I think, there's something to that, but, I pretty much agree with what Bill said about these things get written, they get put on a shelf and they're never used again. And I think that's likely to happen with the compensation study. And the reason is because, we're competitively priced, we're, as Jeff analogy was a couple meetings ago about the lily pond, we're hiring people that are local, working for other districts, and we're just trading people around in the lily pond. So we're gonna our wages, our pay is going to be very similar to everybody else's, whether we do a study or not. But where I do think what I do think is valuable is the organizational study. Obviously I'd like to have it done cheaper and I'd like to have it more focused, but I think that has some long-term value. And so other than the cost, I'm all in favor of that. But
That's the
anyway.
hard part of this. Is if you're looking at a compensation study in this industry, there's a world of data out there already. You can average it, you can mean it, you can do whatever you want with it, but there's a lot of data out there in terms of how should you organize the company. The data that you have is there are some functional districts and some at different levels dysfunctional districts, and that's what you have to sort out. It's those soft skills that get your organizational study done.
Yeah. Well, and the plant types are different too. This plant operates different than other plants. And so, you got to tailor your staff to fit the operation.
Hey, Jeff, so you have a direction.
Thank you.
That, I think, let's move on to Committee member, pursuant to government, or general manager, just present to this board. Reports. Questions.
Here.
With that then, adjourn at 5:54.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night, Lowell.
Good night. Thank you for the rec on electrician. You can see I'm in the dark here.
Yeah, he should be easy to find, and he lives over behind Vaughn's.
Okay.
west of Ojai.